If your company is pitting people against each other right now, there's a pretty good chance that they're modeling it after a guy who ran his company into the ground and then required our tax dollars to bail him out. And this has continued since the 1980s, and we're seeing a resurgence of the same techniques right now. So, Jack Welch is often called the man who broke capitalism, but he was the practitioner behind the theories that were written by Milton Friedman, as the commenter I'm responding to mentioned Friedenism. Friedman is who started the idea that companies are only about profits. The sole responsibility of a business is to increase profits. And he focused on the idea that companies should only focus on maximizing shareholder value and said that executives that spend money on social issues are spending someone else's money. Then Jack Welch applied this about 10 years later. He was the CEO of General Electric, and he turned Friedman's theories into business practices. He created stack ranking, mass layoffs, and quarterly earnings. When things went really well at his companies, he laid tons of people off because he was really focused. He started the focusing on quarter by quarter, very short-term thinking. He's known for saying long-term is just short-term over and over again and never planned long-term. For a little while, his business seemed to be doing well, but come 2008, it was not ready to survive. It tanked hard. They needed a $139 billion bailout to stay afloat of our taxpayer money. This is why I'm not really impressed with Doge, because all of this still happens. Welch was really known for getting rid of local workers, exploiting labor overseas, and really turning his manufacturing company into more of a bank that took a lot of loans and made a lot of risky financial decisions. In addition to policy implications, what concerns me as an industrial organizational psychologist is we are seeing the same practices with employees that Welch did it coming back, even with companies who've already figured out this didn't work. Welch made what he called the vitality curve, but is more popularly known as stack ranking or the rank and yank system, where the bottom 10% of employees have to be gone every year no matter what. Instead of addressing a performance management issue of if you really have 10% poor performers, why are you still hiring those people and why aren't you noticing they're there? It creates a system where even if you're doing well, managers are forced to rate the bottom 10% and get rid of them. Microsoft started doing this in the early 2010s and their market cap fell by 50%. It almost destroyed them. That's when the new CEO, Nadella, came in, and that is what he identified was the issue, that they were working against each other trying to survive instead of collaborating and innovating, which was what Microsoft needed as a tech company that did a lot of innovating. Nadella saved Microsoft, but just this year, they've announced they're going back to stack ranking, as well as Meta and several other big tech companies. In my upcoming book on the unwritten rules of work, I have a chapter on the unwritten rules of hierarchy. And I mentioned stack ranking, and I tell the story here and provide recommendations on how to navigate this, especially when compared to also the trend right now of flat hierarchies. Because the problem with Welchism and Friedmanism on top of policies is in like public policy that rewards bad behavior. There are unwritten rules that never get addressed. The informal hierarchies that happen in a flat hierarchy, the toxic individualism that happens when you pit people against each other, and the unwritten rule of compliance of people not being able to speak up and voice opinions or disagree respectfully. Because Welch had made such a fear-driven culture that there was nobody to speak up when he started making really risky financial decisions that torpedoed the company into the ground. And this has absolutely impacted our political landscape of people being laid off by manufacturing companies for labor overseas. The Rust Belt especially took a very hard hit, and a lot of these workers are very poor and very angry. And get this, business schools still teach Jack Welch like he's an angel. A lot of MBA programs still laud his practices, and our economic structure rewards this bad behavior. I have heard many CEOs say, I would love to do XYZ, or I would love to focus on XYZ, but my shareholders would never allow it. It's quarter by quarter. So the irony is we have companies encouraging people to compete against each other to an unhealthy degree where they're not making products, they're not being innovative, they're sabotaging each other. Everyone's miserable. You're following the blueprint of someone who failed. I can help you build a culture where you don't get into business practices that get you to this point of failure, but I cannot single-handedly keep us from rewarding this bad behavior when it gets to that point and then using our taxpayer dollars to pay for it. That we all have to take care of in the voting booth. That being said, what you can do right now if you're in a leadership position and don't want to end up on this path is you can focus on building a healthier work culture that is more sustainable and that doesn't hurt your bottom line or the people involved. But to do that, you have to recognize that how things always are and what has been normalized since the 80s is not working.